Hi, it's Robin. This parcel just arrived, and it's something special, I'm told. It contains the Roaming Spectrum. It's a ZX Spectrum that originated in the UK, as most of them do, but this one is making its way around the world from place to place, from custodian to custodian. I've been told I am the 9th custodian, and it's here in Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. All right. I'm going to have to pack this back up again after, so I want to keep record of this. Okay. Dandinator mini box. Wow. Lots of stuff here. Hey, Factor of Matt. I know him. More stuff from Matt. Sure looks like a power supply. That's promising. I wasn't sure if it would even have one for here in North America. Paint markers. Some doohickey. Is this the main event? All right. And here it is, the Roaming ZX Spectrum. Adventure awaits, not a bear, doesn't like marmalade. Sounds like a Paddington Bear reference. Take care of me. Ooh. There it is. I have never held a ZX Spectrum in my hands before. I've hardly even seen one in person. I think there's somebody at the Vintage Computer Festival Midwest that brings them and has had them on display. In the UK, this was the main rival to the Commodore 64. Okay, so what's the deal with this? As I understand it, this particular ZX Spectrum has a bit of history. It was originally broken, and the original owner, I'm not sure who that is, had given it away through a Discord channel that I believe has to do with the channel More Fun Making It. So a fellow on there named Henry took it and repaired it. It was apparently a RAM fault. Then he gave it to Lee, who runs More Fun Fixing It and More Fun Making It. Great channel. Check it out if you haven't already. Then Lee changed the case. I think it was originally a different kind of case, the Plus case. He put in one of these classic ZX Spectrum cases and recapped the board. And this is when it was decided that this ZX Spectrum was a special specky. It would travel the world, and at the end of its travels, after gathering many mods and experiences and a lot of fame, it would be auctioned off for a charity called the Befriending Scheme. The Befriending Scheme provides friendship and learning opportunities for vulnerable people aged 16 years plus across Suffolk, that's in the UK, including those with learning disabilities, mental health needs, and other isolated groups. And this includes Lee's son. Then I think it traveled around the UK a bit, including a stop with Neil at The Cave, RMC, during a patron event. So lots of people saw it, and I believe they signed it. It then went across the ocean to the USA to Todd at Yark, yet another retro channel, who made this Dandinator for it. Let's see, is it in here? Which is kind of like a multi-cartridge, has a joystick port. I believe it has software in here. It has an interface, so you could even add some sort of SD card reader or something. It's got some buttons, and he 3D printed that case. And then it went to Levi's Digital Voyage, and he replaced the power jack on it. Apparently it was flaky, and also pointed out it's 9 volts DC, negative tip, very important. It doesn't actually say that there. And of course, most things are positive tip. So don't blow up your Spectrum. And then Levi took it to the Vintage Computer Festival Southwest. And while it was there, all right, it got signed. Do you recognize any of these names? There's Adrian from Adrian's Digital Basement, David Murray, the 8-bit guy, and hey, that Usagi guy, everybody tells me I should watch his channel, and Rudy's Retro Intel and Factor of Matt. I guess I should be signing it too. Maybe I'll do that before I forget it. Guess that's what these markers are for. Paint marker. I think you're supposed to shake these before you use them. Alright. I don't want to take up too much room, but I do want to say hi. It's Robin. 8-bit show tell. Oop. It looked better before I put that dot there. Then it continued its USA travels and went to Mike of Retro Tech or Die. I think he provided the little feet for it. That way it won't get smudged when we put the fresh ink down. And Mike seemed to have a lot of fun just playing around with it, showing his kids all the games on it. They actually got into it. I think they like Dizzy quite a bit. Then it crossed over into Canada and went to DIY. I'm not actually sure what happened there. I don't think he produced a video about it. Then it went to Rudy's Retro Intel, and he replaced the old regulator that I think's up in this corner that ran quite hot with a new modern one that runs way cooler. And then it went to Matthew Desmond, also here in Ontario, aka Factor of Matt of Desterm 128 fame, and who I met last year, VCF Midwest, and mentioned in my wrap-up video for that. And I think Matt made some boards for it and some software that we'll try out. And then finally, he sat up here. Okay, and so here it is. I get a lot of comments on YouTube saying I must be on the spectrum. I guess now they finally have proof. Okay, so most of the other custodians have been doing hardware mods on this, but I wouldn't have the faintest idea what to do. Any modification I made would surely make the thing worse, not better. So what am I going to do with it? For sure, I want to try and get 10 print running on the Spectrum. And just so you have a sense of scale here, here is a regular bread bin C64. And you can see how much smaller it really is. It is a little thing. No wonder they were able to make this a lot cheaper than a Commodore 64. Without knowing about the great rivalry between the Commodore 64 and the ZX Spectrum, my wife already called it, instead of the Roaming Spectrum, I think accidentally she called it the Traveling Speculum, but I want no part of that. I know how scungy looking it's here, so I can't help but clean it. Tecmone talked about these foam tips. They're kind of like Q-tips or cotton swabs, but they don't leave any little hairs behind. They don't leave any little strings. And if the 8-bit guy taught me anything, it's that Windex is the best retro computer cleaner there is. Took me a while to be convinced, but actually now I am. Here we go. Get that? I think some of that's glue or something. Okay, well, that's only marginally better, I think, but at least I tried. Okay, let's try and power it up. So I forgot to mention that I think it was Lee. Somebody modified it, so instead of the TV outputting RF, it's a composite signal. So that makes it a lot easier here in North America, where we definitely cannot tune to PAL RF signals, but PAL composite's a lot easier nowadays with modern video capture. And it's nice that this power supply is included, and it even has an inline switch. One of the many, many cost-cutting things that Sinclair would do is not even include a power button on at least, their first 3 machines for sure, if not more. Okay, here goes. Let's hope it works. Woohoo! 1982 Sinclair Research. And there we are on the K cursor. Yeah, and this faceplate is a bit bent up. I think it's metal. It's kind of curved at the corners in the middle. Anyway, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that's why it looks kind of weird. It's because it is bent a little. you get uneven reflections. Oh yeah, and my friend Mark was asking, now this is the Z, or the Americans might want to say ZX spectrum, but here in Canada we say Z, like in the UK. That's especially appropriate for this British machine. But where'd the name come from? The original Sinclair 8-bit computer was the ZX80. There's two possible sources. I think the Z is definitely from the Zilog Z, or Z80, which is the processor inside these machines. And the 80 could either be the 80 of the Zilog, which in turn came from the Intel 8080, or it just happened to be released in the year 1980. Then when the second machine came out, I'm talking about the past machines, the ZX81 was released in 1981, and it was one version newer than the 80, I suppose. So that was appropriate. And I think for a little while this was rumored to be called the Z82, but I think they're getting sick of that naming scheme. And because this was the first of their computers to output color, not that you would know it from the boot screen, they decided to go with the name Spectrum for the colors. Okay, I definitely want to do 10 print first. So let's do that. We're going to do in two stages. First, we're going to do a true one-line 10 print. If you've seen me struggle with Sinclair computers before, you might know that they have a very different, unique input scheme that I've certainly heard fans try to play up as such a great thing. But, well, anyway, you be the judge. I'm going to give it my honest best try. I actually grew up with the Timex Sinclair 1000. It was my first computer, which is the North American version of the ZX81. But you can see the keyboard here. It has an incredible number of functions per key. And the thing is, you must use these functions in the first three computers at least. I think starting with the Spectrum 128, they got away from that and made it a more normal functioning computer keyboard in BASIC. But on all these earlier models, if you want a certain keyword or function or punctuation mark, you must press the appropriate key. If you want to print, you cannot type out PRINT. So in a way, that's nice. Okay, print is on the P key. So just press P, and you see it instantly, including spaces, displays print on the screen. Now that's nice. That's quick. No problem there. I think you'll see in a bit what some of the more problem ones are, at least for somebody who, doesn't have 12-year-old eyes anymore or hasn't grown up with this particular computer, has totally memorized the whole keyboard. Now we need a quotation mark. Again, we're trying to do a one-line 10 print. Now it's really worn off here. This took me a while to remember, but fortunately the quote is on the P. Now you might expect it up in the 2 or down in this area, but anyway, it's here. At least, it usually follows a print. So you have to use this symbol shift. It's like the red shift to get that almost invisible now. I think the key's worn down from age or use. Shift. There. Hey, apologies if this is frustrating for anybody. I just want to explain the process here. And now I want to do a slash, and it's here on the V. And now I want a backslash. Well, it's here under the D. Now, to get down there, I think what it is you have to press both the symbol shift and regular shift together to change the cursor from an L to an E. And then you have to hold down regular shift and press D to get that function under it. Yes. Okay. And then another quote. And now an opening bracket. So that's symbol 8. And now the function int. And now we got a hunt, int. Okay, there it is up there. So for that, I think you just go into, press both together into that E mode, extend or whatever, and then press R, and there's the int. And then again, another opening bracket. Okay, so far this looks pretty much like regular BASIC, but on Commodore BASIC, we use the mid string function. In Microsoft BASIC, we use MID string to take a substring from another string. And I believe that the Spectrum BASIC doesn't have that. Instead, we're using their way of doing a substring. I'm not really saying better or worse, it's just different. So we've given it the constant string of the 2 slashes. And by the way, I hope you all know what the 10 print maze is, but it's just printing the 2 slashes randomly and it creates a maze. And this first version of it's going to be fairly underwhelming, but we'll fix it later. It's actually going to be quite good. Oh, and thank you to Shaun Bebbington for even bringing this to my attention. And what we're doing today is based on what he showed me. And he actually doesn't remember where he first saw this. But anyway, he got it to me, and thank you to whoever the original author is for coming up with this. Okay, so 1 point and the period or dot, full stop is here on the M key, 1.5. And then we got add, and it's here on the K key, plus the random function. Now, where's that? Okay, that's up here next to int. So again, emode random, and then we can close the bracket twice. Now you notice that random didn't need a parameter. It is a function. It just returns like a random number between 0 and 1. So we're going from 1.5 and adding anywhere from 0 to 1, a floating point. So we'll have a range from 1.5 to just shy of 2.5. And then the int will truncate that and make it either just a 1 or a 2 at very close to 50-50 odds. That whole clause inside the brackets is either a 1 or a 2, and that is how we are choosing either the first or second character in that literal string. So we're just choosing one of those 2, either the forward or back slash. Okay, then we need a semicolon to keep the printing on the same line. That's on the O key, and then we need a colon just way down here on the Z, and then we will press the go to key, and that's just right here. So here we get a win. You notice it says go to 4 letters, but when you type it, it says go space to. I don't know why. In C64 Basic, you can either type go to or go space to, and it does accept both. And then finally, go to 10. What, that take me 7 minutes to type in 1 line of basic? I know I was explaining it. Okay, and then once you've entered it, it displays it up on top of the screen. And here we have 10 print. Now we just press R for run. That's quick. And press enter. And there it goes. It is printing the 10 print maze. And we'll notice this is not the best one. This has happened in other times I've tried to do 10 prints on different machines. On the Commodore, we're not using the slash and backslash. We're actually using graphic characters that are a full 8 pixels from the top left to the bottom right cell, and they completely fill up the entire character cell, so they connect. That's the important point. These ones aren't really intended for that, and they have spaces between them, and it makes the maze far less convincing. Another interesting thing is that it prints one screen, and then the whole program pauses and asks, do you want to scroll? You can say yes, and it will print another page full, and then at the end, it'll see that. And at the end, we'll see that it'll pause again. And then we can answer no. Now there is a workaround for that I'll show you later. Scroll, no. And then we break out of the program. And there we are. And you also notice how slowly it fills the screen. Even though the CPU in the Spectrum is a little bit faster, only a little, it runs at 3.5 megahertz, and the 6502 and the C64 runs at 1 megahertz. You think, oh, the Spectrum is 3.5 times faster. But the 6502 has an extremely efficient system where opcodes take 2 to 7 cycles each, while the Z80 takes 2 times longer for most opcodes. It varies, but generally they are much slower on a per cycle basis, and there's also extra wait states and all kinds of stuff. So the net effect is that, yeah, the Spectrum is a little faster, but don't just compare clock speeds, especially with different CPU architectures. And their basic implementation is really quite slow. I'm interested in the differences, and I appreciate this machine. What's great about the Sinclair is that it was the first computer for many people who could not otherwise afford to have a computer at home. Even though the Commodore 64 was considered a cheap budget toy by rich Americans who bought their Apples and so on, and they're like, oh, the C64 is a toy. Well, in the UK, just because of economic differences, the C64 was the more premium machine, and the Spectrum was the low-cost machine. By the way, this came out just a few months before the C64 and at a lower price, and that really helped it to take off. So what was great is that this was a computer that was pretty good, and you could have it at home. You could play games. You could learn to program. Everything that you want from a computer, this was able to do it. So I totally respect its significance and all the great software that was developed for it. Okay, but can we make a better 10 print? Yes, with one extra line. So it'd be a 2-line, maybe it'd even be possible to do this all in 1 line, but I don't feel like struggling with the editor that much. So we're going to do a 2-line version. Okay, so we're going to add line 5 before, and then we're going to do a for next loop. So we have to use this for. And again, you can't type out FOR, but fortunately that one's easy to find and right there. For I, variable I, this is just a for next loop, equals, and that's on the Shift L, maybe because the let command, which is, I think it's necessary when you're just defining a variable out of nowhere. There are certain smart arrangements on this keyboard. It's not all bad. 0. Okay, and now I got to find 2, but it's not on the T. Oh, yeah, it's on the F. So again, they're grouping it together because if you're going to do a 4, you're going to do a 2. So I don't find that red on the dark gray all that easy to see with my old eyes here. So for I equals 0, 7, just for next loop. And then we're going to make this a long 1-liner, colon for the next statement. Now we're going to poke. P is already taken with print, but poke is right beside it. Now this user function, where's that thing again? USR. Come on. Are you guys all screaming at me? Just like, how many symbols are there anyway? Like every key has 5 or 6 things, and you can't type USR. It doesn't recognize that. You have to press the correct button because that's part of its tokenization scheme. As we type, we are doing the tokenizing. Oh yeah, there it is. USR on green. So we'll go into that E mode, USR. Okay. Quote. So what we're doing, I think USR, quote A, it must return the memory address of graphic character A. Apologies if I'm saying this wrong. It's not the regular A character in ROM, but there are some user-definable graphics that must be in RAM that the video system can display. So what we're going to do is modify graphic character A, again, plus I, and then a comma is here on the N key, 2 to the power of, okay, and the power symbol somewhere here, there it is, on the H. 2 to the power of I. Oh, yeah, I know I'm taking this longer because I'm explaining everything, but if there's anybody who really thinks the Spectrum's superior to Commodore machines, because I've heard that argument, I challenge you to some sort of typing duel. You make a real-time video with a real analog clock of you typing in a particular basic, like a non-trivial basic program. You show me typing in a real Spectrum. I notice a lot of YouTube, people are using Spectrum emulators. They're using the modern ones. They're not using like the classic ZX Spectrum very much live for basic programming. Actually, it's true for Apple. A lot of 8-bit machines, I don't see people programming the original hardware live on YouTube. And I'd like to encourage you to do that, but there might be reasons why people don't want to do that. Okay, let's keep going. Poke, user, and I haven't made a typing mistake yet where you got to show that the delete key, you got to use Shift to get at it. Oh, you got to use Shift to get at the cursor keys up here too. Okay, we're going to define user character B. And again, we're going to add I and 2. I am having fun with this, though. I like the challenge. I hit shift, but I meant to hit, okay, there. Backspace. There we go. To the power of 7 minus, where's minus? There it is on J. Minus I. Okay, good. Okay, so what we're doing is just defining these two slashes. And when we do 2 to the power of I, we're just stepping through from 0 to 7. So it's 2 to the 0 is 1, 2 to the 1 is 2, 2 to the 2 is 4, 8, and so on. So really we're just defining a binary bitmap that goes from 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. It'll be a diagonal line this way, I think. And when we subtract I from 7, we're essentially inverting it. We're going from 7 to 0. 2 to the power of 7 is 128, 64, 32, and we're just defining little 8x8 bitmaps that will be full graphic characters. And it's pretty easy to do that, obviously, here in Spectrum Basic. Okay, and now all we have to do is next. That's good. And I think you actually have to type the variable name. In Microsoft Basic, like on the Commodores, you don't need to actually define the variable because it's pushed on a stack and you just pop it off. But okay, and we're almost done. What we also have to do is edit. So I think that's Shift 1. There's an edit function up there. Then we can cursor down. If you look up at the top, there's a little greater than symbol beside 5. And if I press cursor down, it highlights line 10. I don't know why it doesn't immediately display line 10 at the bottom. If we press edit again, now we can edit line 10. And so you can cursor up or down and edit the particular line you want. There is no full screen editor in this, but at least you don't have to retype the whole line. You can bring it up this way. And what we do is just we cursor right. You see how the cursor kind of jumps between, unlike the Commodore, the cursor flashes over the character. Here it actually just shuffles and makes room for the cursor, which is fine, just different. Okay, so I'm going to go to the right. I'm going to delete both of those slashes. And now inside the quotes, we're going to go into graphics mode. So we hold down Shift and press this graphics up here above 9. And the cursor changes to a G to indicate graphics mode. And then we type A and B. Okay, and those aren't the regular A and B characters. Those are graphic A and B. And now we'll exit graphic mode and press enter. Okay, and now we should be ready. Let's try it. Run. Come on, come on. Yay! Okay, a very nice looking 10 print with a 2-line program. That's great. Okay, oh yeah, it still has this scroll thing here. Scroll. Okay, let's do one scroll there. Okay. And if you don't like that scroll, there is a poke that lets you get around that. So one more time, we will edit line 10. Good. And right here at the beginning of the line, we're going to add this poke, 2, 3, 6, 9, 2, comma. And this is where you can define how many lines you can display before it prompts you with that scroll option. So if you set it higher, actually, I'd probably any number, if you're poking that over and over again, if this is like a countdown, I actually haven't looked into exactly what it means, but let's poke it with 99. Probably a much smaller number would be sufficient. Okay, and what that should do is keep resetting the counter. So we'll run it. Basically, it should just run forever now and won't keep prompting to scroll. It doesn't seem to have slowed it down much. There we go. You like that? I like that. Okay, and then the break function. It's interesting that they put it right on the same key instead of above. I guess that makes sense. Okay, so I think if we hold down Shift Space, that will break. Yep. Yay! 10 print on the Spectrum. Oh, that took forever. You guys even are you still with me? You know what? That is enough for one video. Okay, so we did it. 10 print on the ZX Spectrum. I'm going to be sending this on to its next custodian shortly, but maybe I'll have time to make one more video about it before I do that. Time will tell. Okay, thanks to all the past and future custodians of the Roaming Spectrum or the Roaming Speccy. Thanks to my patrons for their support. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.